Good afternoon to our guests in the call and to all the listeners today. My name is Lisa Nadam. I'm responsible for IBM in Suisse Romande in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. And it's my pleasure today to welcome Quentin and Mehdi, who are two professionals from the company Enova, one of our business partners. And I will let them introduce themselves before we get started on our topic of today. Quentin, over to you.
Thank you, Lisa. So thank you, everyone today. So Enova, we are quite a young company. Maybe you can just go for the next slide. We are founded in 2018. So we are a Swiss company dedicated to IT expertise and strategy. We are based in Geneva and Zurich, actually. And by the end of 2020, we are counting 50 experts on various domains in our teams. To go brief on that. Okay, maybe we can go now, I guess, in the deep of the subject we are talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe as a short introduction, Quentin, and Mehdi, I'm sure you'll have the chance to introduce yourself afterwards. To set the tone for our listeners today, as you know from the title of the webinar, we're going to discuss Watson Supply Chain Insight as a solution. But I'm particularly thrilled that we have the Enova team with us, because this is not going to be just a product presentation. It's really going to be the presentation of a very hands-on use case that Enova has deployed in a POC mode based on projects and discussions with customers. So the idea is really to provide you a very hands-on and real-life experience with this solution. Before we jump in, though, into that use case that the Enova team has developed, I would like Quentin to give us a short overview about what Watson Supply Chain is, because this is maybe the first time that you're hearing about the solution. Quentin will tell us a little bit about it. But before that, just from my side, the reason why I'm so excited about this particular solution, and I wanted to showcase it in our webinar, is the fact that we often talk about how AI should not just be a technology used in front-end chatbots, that we should really infuse it in the back-end processes to optimize them and make them more innovative. And I feel like this is really the turning point we're at right now. A lot of organizations have experimented with AI. They have tried out a few innovation projects, but very few of them are at the point where they're actually able to infuse AI in their back-end processes. And this solution, Watson Supply Chain Insight, is really a great example, I think, of that ability to actually fuel AI into back-end tools, back-end processes that really will increase the value you get from your business. And supply chain, we all know, is a fairly complex area. And so it makes a lot of sense here to be able to automate and optimize the processes. And so over to you, Quentin, maybe to give us a little bit of background about the solution before we then jump into the actual use case.
Yes, thank you. So just to introduce the platform and the tool, first, it's powerful. It's a powerful platform and set of tools that can enhance company supply chain. We are going to go, let's say, deep through in the details with Mehdi, that is our lead integration specialist. To talk about the Watson Supply Chain, it integrates, in fact, AI capabilities. So you can see just below in the slide, you can ask Watson a lot of information, a lot of treatment in an easy way. And I guess we are going to go into detail just after in the presentation. Just to give some insights, let's say you can treat quite complex amount of information flows, and you can add on it some work on, let's say, predictive analysis and decision you can make with this tool. Many other points, I guess Mehdi is going to show us today, as well, for example, the use of API solution from IBM addressed to B2B services, for example. Yes, just to talk about maybe some of our clients' question. In fact, we have many clients that are asking us to make some proof of concept over this tool. Let's say the main question we have are how easy it is to export, to make control, to transform with Watson supply chain. How can we use the tool to centralize, let's say, access to and work on exported file, for example, for different function among the companies, for business analysts, product owner, data administrators, developers. How it is to, let's say, control, transform, and let's say make the transformation with less effort. So that's a tool that allows that, but we're going to see that. And let's say, how can I use, and this is a big one, how can I use AI features without having to code everything? And this is, I guess, a great point, one of the great points over this solution platform, and we're going to talk about today.
Okay. Yes. So I will begin with the integration key, Lisa. So about data.
Absolutely. Mehdi, if you could give us a little bit of background about the different building blocks, because I think the introduction of Quentin was great to kind of understand the area of application, the end-to-end value proposition, but I'm sure our listeners are curious to see what's kind of under or in the box, and what are the components that are contributing to that solution.
Okay, so the fact is that during our proof of concept, the client asked us to easily find a way to export data that they have from their logistics part, but also from other databases. They had a lot of different databases for the CRM, the client, the accounting and billing, for refund, and for the logistics. How can we ship our goods, where it is, how can we do better, how can we integrate everything, and all the solutions about supply chain, like integrate another company because we want to make a horizontal scalability in the financial flow, or the horizontal scalability, like, okay, I'm selling games and maybe tomorrow I want to sell food. So it's two different kind of markets, but there is common functions like create a product, ship a product, can be in the same functionality to minimize the cost of the shipping and so on and so on. So we said, okay, we have Watson supply chain. This is the main target of our development, but we need to control the data, and sometimes the data has bad quality. So we decided to use DB2 as a database to make the control, to be sure that when a parent key exists, the foreign key will not complain, and that the parent key exists before, and so on and so on. We could have used MongoDB if we want, or Cloudant, or another big data. We used IBM APP Connect Enterprise, which is a robust enterprise service bus for the orchestration. So meaning I have the data of the client, I want to send them to Watson supply chain. How can I orchestrate and control everything, validate, transform, and so on and so on. And we used IBM Cloud Object Storage, which is, you can see it like Dropbox, but which is proprietary of IBM, with a lot of control, security, historizations, and log, and so on and so on. And the main part also is that on Dropbox you have one Dropbox, and in IBM Cloud Object Storage they separated the content in what they call buckets, which is cool. So I can have a bucket of development, I can have a bucket of production, Or I can say I have a bucket of CRM and I have a bucket of SAP accounting and so on and so on. So this is really great because we wanted to combine everything and say, okay, we have a full solution for that. So this is why we used all those different components. And IBM API Connect is the last one, which is the API manager, which is the portal where client can connect and consume data of the Watson supply chain of your subscription. The thing is that when we wanted to use all those tools, we wanted to explain during our proof of concept that the same code that we develop worked on our internal servers, but also on the cloud. So the client has the flexibility to choose three options. Either it's on the cloud or it's on their local server on premise because of restrictions, or they can use hybrid. So here on this print screen, I show that I have DB2 locally, but I also have DB2 with the same tables on the cloud. So the same behavior, the same logic for DB2. I wanted to show IPP Connect without going in deep to say that the main advantage of IPP Connect is that we do what we call less code, think more. So we don't code really. We have 20% of code compared if I wanted to do, like, for instance, in Java. And also the thing is that the code I developed is working as well with the same behavior locally and on the cloud. This is why we used IBM APP Connect, which is really a very robust enterprise service bus, and it's been existing for more than 15 years. We have IBM API Connect, so I will go in deep later and I will explain really the main advantage. The client was really happy when he knew that he could have some features that could help him for his financial part with IBM API Manager, the IBM API Connect. And also it's a good gateway for security also, and for tracing what happens and have a big view with dashboards and charts and pies where you can see what happens, how it happens, and so on. And there is another extra feature that I will explain later. And this is an example just of my own bucket. So this is a bucket. I called it, as you can see here, bucket SCI for supply chain insight POC. And this is a bucket that I used. And as you can see, he was created in England. And so you have also the flexibility to create it in US, in Germany, and in many other regions and countries. So this is a cloud object storage, and it's really easy to create. It's like click, and you have a cloud object storage, and you have a security with credentials, SSL encryption, and so on and so on. And you even have a tool that you can install on your machine to transfer from your local machine. You can transfer with a tool called IBM Aspera. You can transfer your data without having to go to the cloud. You copy it on your local machine, and transparently it goes into the cloud like Dropbox, we can say. Okay. I give the speech to Quentin. She's there. Hello, Quentin.
You're on mute. We're not hearing you.
Wow.
Sorry about that, misclick. Okay, thank you, Mehdi, for that. And talking about the advantages, in fact, of we use App Connect Enterprise on that. So Mehdi, you can add something if you want, because I know you mastered the solution there. So you can there control data integrity. You have control over data structure, data format. You can pre-control in DB2 before sending data to Watson supply chain. You can generate log for each data row. It's easy to deploy, easy to scale. You have a free testing environment, so we're talking maybe more about that later, but this is kind of an important point. I'm not going deep into messaging and contract aspect there. Maybe you can talk a bit about that. And one point as well is that we have one development for on-cloud and on-premise code without changing any line. And so that's a great point for optimizing the developer time.
Okay, yes. So I just give a small detail for the message contracts. Message contracts is a great technology to control data, but also this is something that is generic for any company. So I can give an XSD to a developer of almost all the companies in the world, and they can say, okay, cool, we can have the same way of talking, so we don't have to translate each other. So they can have the same structure to send us data, and they know how is the structure of the data, what is the format, what is the type, and we validate before sending it, because the quality of the data is the quality of a company. And even his finance mean is the data for a company. It's really important that we have a good quality of data. So I want to explain just with a small print screen. This is the main pane of the data manager in Watson Supply Chain Insight. This means that these are all the elements that exist in Watson Supply Chain Insight, meaning that if you master all of them, you understand how Watson Supply Chain Insight works for IBM, meaning that all the components can be used. And the most important is that when we go to a client, we have to find the match of those elements in their database. Meaning I go to the client, I say, okay, can you show me where is your supply plan? Can you show me where are your products? Where is your database client? We gather all of them. We remove this complexity. We say, okay, give us the structure of your data. We will help you to export them. We export them in any format, CSV, other database, plug to their own database to be able to extract with a batch. And then the most important, the first point is to add them here in Watson Supply Chain, and of course with control, transformation, and so on and so on. So this was one of the main first point, is that this dashboard is really the primary thing that we have to do for the migration of the data. Then I will maybe go just, but not too far, with this orchestration use case. This one is an orchestration where I have my local ESB server working and collaborating with the ESB of the cloud to send the data. So in this use case, the client wants to get a control of his own server on his internal network. And he would like also to send this to the cloud so this is a hybrid solution where we have DB2 and the ESB here, as you can see, locally. And we have here the ESB communicating with the other one. And the ESB in the cloud calls Watson Supply Chain Insight. And the the first 0.7 here is a secured connection, which is really important in SSL to be sure that we are like in a VPN mode. It's like almost like a VPN, but it's really a secured tunnel between my own internal server and the distant cloud server. This is one of the first use case that we have been able to do. And the client was happy because he has the flexibility for the decision of what they can do with their architect in infrastructure. So this was of the first point, and we showed sequentially what to do. So first, we get the data. The data are sent to Cloud Object Storage because it was easy for the client. He said, I want to send you only CSVs. Okay, we said, give us the CSVs, and he puts them on the cloud storage. Then, when the data is on IBM Cloud Storage, the client sends a trigger to say to the local ESB of his internal network, okay, go on, you can take the data and put them on DB2. So then, 0.3, the ESB going to take the data from IBM Cloud Object Storage. 0.4, he's going to add them into DB2, and then someone can go check on DB2 if all the data are correct. And also the ESB created a log file saying everything went well, or maybe there is a problem with some data, and please, can you go check what to do? Can we go on, or do we have to rerun another batch for the correction of those missing elements? Then someone, which can be the same person, will trigger the second part, which will be the 0.5, say, okay, now please go to DB2 take the data and send them to the ESB of the cloud. And the ESB of the cloud will get those data and just send them securely on the cloud to Watson supply chain on the account of the client. And then the data were there. We have the same result in the end where everything is on the cloud. We have no need to have the on-premise APP Connect and the on-premise DB2. Here, DB2 is on the cloud, APP Connect is on the cloud. Very important, the code is the same. No change of code, zero change of code. I take the code and I put it on the cloud. No waste of time. The IBM Cloud Object Storage is the same. And the thing is that all the orchestration is made by one APP Connect, which is on the cloud. But the target is still the same. It's putting data to what's on supply chain inside.
So maybe before we jump into the demo, I think let me try and recap to see if I understood it correctly and for all of our listeners, because I think it's very exciting. It's a lot of information. What I would kind of take away is, number one, you started by saying you're going to present the integration use case. And I think when I put myself into the shoes of some of our listeners, the minute you hear integration, you hear something cumbersome, complicated, time-consuming, usually very expensive. But you also hear that in many cases, it's a necessity. You can't really take advantage of an AI solution if you don't have very strong and powerful integrations with data sources, with security, with your on-prem systems. And what I liked about what you presented is it sounded like it is integration, yes, but it is light integration in the sense that you have building blocks on the cloud that can be combined with your on-prem architecture that can be consumed by deploying services very easily, by clicking on them, and then you connect them in a relatively easy way. At least it sounded like it was. So what I also liked, and this would be the second point I took away from what you said, is it sounded like you don't necessarily have to make a final decision whether you want to do this on-prem, in the cloud, or in a hybrid fashion, because you said the code remains the same, right? And so I think this is very, very useful for most organizations, because depending on the use cases, depending on the situation, sometimes depending on the countries, you may have constraints for data privacy reasons, for latency reasons. You have your legacy architecture, and having the ability to design those integration workflows and have the end system being the same, while still having either full cloud or hybrid deployments, I think is super valuable. And so before you go into the demo, my third point would be, I think you made it, right? You said the data is so important. The data is probably the most important things that organizations have. And let's face it, in this particular scenario where you want to do AI on data that is linked to your supply chain, the quality of your data is going to be really, really important. And so I was wondering if you could, one, give us in the demo a few examples of data sources that could be connected to Watson's supply chain, maybe some that you've experimented with, and then directly building on that, the type of questions that you were able to ask based on that data, based on that insights. And if you could also explain to our listeners how difficult it was to ask those questions. Were they pre-trained in the tool? Did you have to train specific algorithms to be able to ask those questions? I think this would make it very tangible.
Yeah, so as you said, the most important is the data, because AI works on prediction with data. So if the data is not correct, the AI won't be able to give you the results or the predictions with a very good accuracy, because the data is not accurate. So if you want to get a good base, you have to get the best data as you can. So the thing is that now I will go to my VM. Sorry, I will go to first to IBM Cloud. And I will answer to your question about the data sources. So we decided to use DB2 because it was the best choice for the control of primary key and foreign key, and get a strict typing format for the base for the dates. Sorry. So for a date, we wanted to get a control on the date format, for the numbers, for the some primary key and foreign key that must exist. Okay, I know that it's an old way to do, but it was a good solution for the client. But some clients say, okay, I would like to use big data. So, but we propose that also. So on IBM Cloud, we have Cloudant, which is like a MongoDB. It's the big data that we could have used and replaced DB2. So Cloudant must be somewhere here in my amount of resources. So if I search for Cloudant, yeah. So Cloudant is there, and I could have used IBM Cloudant, which is a big data. And so instead of sending SQL queries to insert the data, I would have sent JSON just to the big data, and the data would be there. You see, and then they can control it before sending it to Watson supply chain. We could have used also MySQL, because there is SQL here, SQL query. So this is Squirrel, so we could have used it. So there is a lot of different possibilities. For the data transfer, we could have used MQ, the good, robust way to send data with IBM MQ, which is well proven, and it does not need to be challenged. Everyone knows that MQ is very robust, but IBM also provide something which is more a trend of today, which is Kafka. And for Kafka, IBM has the event stream, which is somewhere. Okay, my event stream is no more available. He's there, sorry. So I have event stream, and IBM event stream is like a Kafka to transfer a huge amount of data as quick as possible. And also being able to get a cluster. So being sure that I have high availability and no failover on the data transfer. So we could have used event stream. There is a lot of resources and different possibilities. The thing is that we just need to know how to combine them and when to combine them to use the best solution depending on the request and the need of the client. So
it sounds like it's a great toolbox, right? Of like different tools that you can combine and put together based on the need. That's really interesting. And so going to the second question, what's the impact, or how easy is it to ask a question in Watson Supply Chain Insight? And could you tell us a little bit about the training that is required for custom questions you may come up with that are specific to your business?
Okay, yeah. So IBM has a point of view with Watson where the training is like almost instant. Well, depending on the data, maybe it will have to calculate a little, but it's like almost instant. So meaning I put the data, and the second after he's going to learn himself. And so for the next questions, he will get me the result with the updated data I just sent before. So this is the thing. The good advantage is that IBM is providing a lot of questions by default that I can ask to Watson supply chain. But if the client says, I need more questions for my business needs, we still have the possibility to create custom questions. So what I propose is that I make a demo on how we add the data to Watson supply chain, because for the moment, for the demo, my supply chain is empty. So the data, as you can see here, everything will be in gray because I don't have any data. So of course, I need to feed my Watson supply chain, and then I can ask some questions. And then we will see with the rest of the AI capabilities. So go to my VM. This is my toolkit for the enterprise service bus development. So the first thing is that I will ask to my ESB to go to IBM Cloud Object Storage, take the CSVs and put them to DB2. So here it is DB2. Let's take, for instance, the location table. I have no data, as you can see. So I run the first step. So it's going to run. Voila, it's going to now it's going to Cloud Object Storage. It takes the CSV, it makes the controls, and it sends everything. So I have the response. This is the log file. He's telling me what he did on which CSV. He said, okay, I have this primary key and everything worked well with return code 0. This primary key is okay, and so on and so on. This error is okay. It's a controlled error. It's myself. I wanted to have it because this is what we call false negative. So meaning I want to see if I have foreign key orphaned, will it complain or not? We have to show to the client also that if something bad happens, we will see it. But for all the rest, everything worked well. So now my data is on DB2. If I refresh DB2, as you can see, I have my locations. You have London, I have Brussels, I have Amsterdam, I have Panama. I used Panama because the difference is that this one is not a city, and that's why it's easy for him to decide, because he knows that he have to use this information for shipping with boats instead of cities, because for cities he can use airports, boats also sometimes, and trucks, for instance. And so now what I will say to my ESB is go to DB2 and send the data to Watson supply chain. So it's going to run now, and we will see the result where it's taking all those data of those tables and it's making the insert to Watson supply chain inside. So it will take quite some time. We just have to wait a little. And then it will show me the results. Voila. So now he said return code 201 means it's inserted, created. So as you can see, he took all my data and he has been able to add them to Watson supply chain. Okay, this one already existed. I didn't took in account if something exists already. I could have made the update, but it's okay. And now if I go back to my Watson supply chain environment and that I refresh the page, you will see that my data are there. It's quite slow. Voila. And as you can see, you have elements in blue, meaning I have some data. If I go to products, you will see I have 3 products, if I remember. And as you can see, I have 3 products. Now let's go to the most interesting part, which is Watson supply chain. So imagine that I don't have any knowledge of SQL queries. I don't want to create a web interface or software to retrieve my data and make some questions. Now I will say, okay, hello Watson supply chain. Show me the products. I just go. It's a default question. No need to customize it or try to create. It exists. It's provided by Watson supply chain. I just say, show me products. And he is now thinking, saying, okay, he wants to see what? Oh, products. Okay, I will show him the products. The thing is that the first time, voilà. And he's talking to you if you feel alone, which is great. So the thing is that now that I have my products, I can, by myself, with my preferences, I can add some columns for the next time. I don't want, maybe I want to get the product number. Let's go and select the product number. Every time, next time you will ask, he will remember and he will say, oh yeah, but this user of my company, he wants to see the product number and maybe the product brand. Let's go. And maybe someone else, another employee, is more interested in getting the product line and the product number and so on and so on. So this is one of the questions.
And Mehdi, is it fair to say that while you may still need a data engineer to do that first step that you showed, which is, connecting your data sources to Watson supply chain, but once that has been done, the power of the AI is really to make this a tool for end users, right? It could be someone from the business who's interacting with that chatbot and is able to really dig deep inside the data, into the data, without having any data engineering background. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we could do that. So the thing is that this is the most dashboard for the financial flow, the good flows, and all the flows for managing the supply chain of the company. And here we have more the developer part. Let's try to open it. Option, allow, where we have the AI part, okay? And we have what we call the agents, okay? So IBM can provide for free some agents, just need to ask. So I asked and they gave me 2 agents, which is for educational purpose, okay? I created my own agent just to play with it. And inside of them, you can put some custom questions, okay? So the thing is that on the demo, I will show a custom question based on the data. So I will take the one that IBM provided me. And as you can see, there is a lot of questions that you can ask, and you can customize them. And if you have a developer in your company, he can learn and he can develop it. And the one of the advantage also is that the language used is not fixed by IBM. So they wanted to provide the flexibility to be able to code the same behavior and results for Watson with JavaScript, Python 2 and 3, Swift for iOS developers and Mac Apple developers, but also Java. So it's really wide. Just take Java and Python Node.js, and you have almost all the developers of the world, except for the .NET one, but you have a lot of developers available with that. So this is one of the good point, is that you just need to know one of those language and you can create your own custom questions. This is really interesting. So what I will do is just, I will show a custom questions I made. Okay. So this was my project. I created a custom questions, which was, can you show me the alternatives to send some goods from Amsterdam to England? So the thing is that I will ask to Watson, okay, I will copy my question and I will paste my question. And what he will ask, now he's thinking, but one, he's thinking, and 2, he's checking on internet. So meaning that he went to weather information, he went to traffic jam on maybe Google, Waze. He tried to think himself and he said, okay, this is my answer. The normal route by road via Calais. For the moment, Calais, the conditions are very bad, not good, and sailing are delayed. So he checked even the time delay for boats. So imagine you want to send something by train. He will also check if the train is not delayed by himself. And I didn't have to do anything. This is the Watson core of IBM that did that for me. All the thing I did said, check that based on my data.
So Mehdi, is it fair to say then that these algorithms, these models were pre-trained? You didn't have to indicate to Watson Supply Chain Insight, please go and check on the weather, on the traffic APIs. But what you did though is, on top of those pre-trained algorithms, you had the ability to ask some custom questions that are relevant to your business.
Correct. All I did was saying, my data is for the product return. So because you have the product return, you have the shipping to customer. So maybe you want your question for the shipping to customer, which is not the same for product return. And I said, for the products I have in my database. And so he said, okay, I will check in your database. I will see in the table product return, and I will give you, sorry, that's for the alternate routes. I was in the wrong question. He took the table alternate routes. He checked in the table from where it must go and to which it has to go. So he checked in the order and the shippings. What are the products? What are the goods where the initial departure is Amsterdam and the destination was UK? I didn't have to give that. All I said is, give me alternate routes and see what has to go from Amsterdam to UK. That's it. And then he gave me the result himself, thinking alone.
That's very impressive. And I think it's a great example that shows that you need to input things into an AI system. And we spoke earlier, the quality of the data is so important. So you're inputting good data, and you can, to help you do that, you have other tools that you mentioned before to ensure you have qualitative data flowing into the tool. And then basically you're inputting your questions, and that you're also the only one who can actually input them because you have the business insights. But everything else, the glue in between, the magic in between that generates the response is actually has been pre-trained in the tool. But what I like is that it's not a black box. If I understood correctly, at any point in time, you have the ability to go and code additional things so that it becomes relatively transparent to you as an end user.
Yes, correct. And the fact is that Watson shows you how he decided to find the solution. Well, it's not easy to understand.
Very interesting.
The step where he started and said, "This is my finite solution." You see?
Again, you understand the reasoning, and it's not a black box that gives you an answer and you're not quite sure how it got to that conclusion.
No, because the great part is that if on my, for developers more, but on my question, if I put pipe debug, he give me all the steps and all the details of all those, of this, we call that directed acyclic graph. He will give me all the steps and information of all the dots.
That's very interesting. It sounds to me like you're getting the luxury of having an assistant who does the heavy lifting for you, but you're not losing the control over the process, which I think for most organizations is the key to allowing AI to enter their backend systems, because it shouldn't be a black box. It should be an assistant for them to make better decisions, but they should have full visibility on what's happening. So that's really interesting.
Because the most difficult is that, well, for the moment, I only have 4 or 5 data. But when you have millions of data, it all takes his sense to help you find what you want. AI is there for when you get huge amount of data. How can we predict things based on those huge amount? If I needed to do myself, I would take months, where the AI took 30 seconds, for instance.
Yeah, that's very impressive. And so maybe kind of pivoting a little bit, now that you have those great insights, how are you able to kind of use them to make decisions? How do you turn them into KPIs that will allow you to make good, insightful decisions in your business?
Yeah, so they went very far, which is really great. So you have your operation center, you have a dashboard that you can customize as you want, because maybe you are on the CRM part. You want to see more the clients and what the client did. Maybe you are on the manufacturing. You want to see how goods are created and how fast the good is created, and if the good is shipped quickly to the client. So everyone has his own dashboard that he can customize. You can edit the layout, as you can see. But the most important that they did for me was the KPI threshold alerts. So this thing means that here I have a KPI editor, and I will give you a use case. Here I have my KPIs for the orders, and I will edit it. The KPI for the order here will give me an alert, okay? And we can give also an email, meaning I will receive an email saying, oh, there is something, there is a warning or something critical. And here, for instance, if I put T and I save it, it means what? It means that everything works in your company. You have some orders. A lot of clients are bookings or some goods, and you are really happy. Everything is fine. Now comes Christmas. Christmas is really difficult for manufacturers sometimes, and it means that it will give you a warning when 80% of the capacity of orders is reached, and it will send you a critical alert if we have 100%. At 100, between 80 and 100, you have the time and the decision to say, what are we doing? Do we hire more people to be able to respond to the need and to be able to catch all the orders? Or do we ask to put a buffer of order and delay the orders because we don't have enough manpower to be able to manufacture everything. So this is one of the KPIs. And 2 point important also is that IBM Watson Supply Chain provides 73 predefined KPIs. But if you say, I didn't find my dream on those KPIs, okay, no problem. You can create your own custom APIs based on what you want, a return, an order, a supply, a delivery, and you can give warnings and critical events. And you can also say which data is the most relevant and important for the KPI threshold monitoring.
So same logic, it seems, a lot of pre-trained and predefined KPIs to help you get started. You're not starting from a blank sheet, just as we spoke earlier with the data and with the algorithms, but you have the ability to customize them to your own needs. So this is really interesting. And if we look now into the fact that you have qualitative data that you've been able to feed into the tool from different data sources in a hybrid fashion if needed. You've gained qualitative insights. You're able to act on them through the KPIs. Say now you wanted to kind of resell those insights to your external or internal clients. You wanted to have a wider ecosystem benefit from that. Earlier on, you touched on the fact that API Connect allows you to create that kind of portal logic. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, just one detail before, which is really important. For the AI, there is the agents that we can create, but also IBM provided shared AI that everyone can use. And one of the most interesting, I think, for me, was the statistics. So it's activated, but let's go in deep inside of it just to see what are the capabilities of these statistics. It means that when I have my data, I go to my patterns, meaning I can ask all those questions, okay? And we can even add those one, which are commented, but I can ask all those questions, and Watson Supply Chain will make the statistic calculation for me already. So the palette that we saw, sorry, is that we can make AI for, you can even ask him for jokes, he's going to do it. Like Siri, you can ask for documentation means, can you order them for me based on some classification that you will do, and I can provide you this classification, or can you try to find some classifications? Okay, this is for the document sorting. There is for data, there is for the images. You can even say, try to find which product it is. Give him some images, and he will add them into the database saying, oh, this product looks like this one has the same image, maybe it's the same product. Okay, I will put it on this product because it really looks like the same. So he can add images on your product because he knows that it's the same. This is this product, you see? So imagine you have 1,000 of images that you have to insert. You don't want to do it yourself saying, oh, this image is for this product. Just give one image to one product, and he will try to think and find which image belongs to which product. You see? So he will sort and categorize for you. So there is a lot of AI provided with the subscription on Watson Supply Chain. Now to reply, yeah, this is really interesting, and this is great because we don't want to go from a blank page, as you said, and it's easier when we have something. We can take that and think to do something else because it's easier. We have an example. Now to go to your question about Watson Supply Chain, we decide we could have done the demo without IBM API Connect. It's working. It's really working. But the thing is that we wanted to show some features and capabilities of IBM API Connect. So I go to my resource list. I click on IBM API Connect. I have the dashboard. I will go to my live environment, and we will see that today that he will have received some calls. Okay, so I go to my sandbox. Okay, this is my environment. I go to the analytics, and the thing is that we showed to the client that he can see some views and dashboards with some charts and pies of what is happening in the call and the request of his data. Okay, so let's take the data of the last 30 days. As you can see, I've made some calls to Watson supply chain. He can see what have been in success, what has been in error. He can give me the average of speed, if my request was slow, if the server responds quickly, how many calls I made. This is really an overview, and you can customize because I customized it. So you can customize it. You can drag and drop if you want to put it somewhere else. You can do whatever you want. This is really a big view on what is happening on your API calls. And the most interesting part is that we showed to the client that during the development of the API, he can have his own clients and he can publish the data to his client so they can consume the API. And if he wants, he can even monetize the share of his data with a monthly subscription, and he can give limits to his client saying, okay, I will give you only 1,000 calls per month, per week. Okay, let's go per week. Okay, and she said, okay, you have 10,000 calls per week, and then it's monetized, so he has to pay, and you can give the price, and you can give a free trial. Okay, you can try for free 500 calls. So what does it mean? Imagine I'm selling books, okay, and I have my preferred clients, and I would like to give them the best price with a discount. And they have a huge system, and those clients, maybe they provide many countries. You say, I will monetize my API so you can access my products, their prices, and only you know this price. But the consumption of those data has to be paid. And so the client pay to access my data, and he has the best price he can find for those books. And the client then can sell to any other resellers or to final clients with the best price that he can find in the market.
This is very interesting, and I think in particular when it comes to supply chain, right? Because it's an area where you will work with your ecosystem. You very rarely own the entire supply chain. You have suppliers, you have clients at the end of it. And so being able to share that information and have them also optimize their own part of the supply chain process is extremely valuable. Now, it sounds, Mehdi, and we're getting to the end of our webinar today, but it sounds like it is relatively easy to get started. You mentioned earlier that you can do it fully on the cloud or in a hybrid fashion. And when you do it on the cloud, a lot of the services you showed are available in a freemium version. So it's very easy and cost efficient to get started. But I imagine, when putting myself in the shoes of our listeners, that it is a lot of information, and knowing how to get started, having a partner able to support you in that is extremely valuable to kind of do the first iterations, the first exploration with you. And from what you've said, you've worked with many customers already, both in cloud or hybrid deployments through different scenarios. So I'm assuming that the listeners of the webcast today that are interested in getting in touch with you because they'd like to maybe start a first POC can contact you and Quentin if they're interested in exploring a use case together with you.
Yeah, of course. And the most interesting part is that for the cloud part, so the infrastructure as a service, the platform as a service, and the software as a service, we did it with only free resources from IBM. We didn't pay €1, one Swiss franc for that. Everything was free of charge for the tests. Everything, even Watson supply chain, the dashboard, we can use for as trial, and it's worked very well. So as you can see, everything is there and for free. So this part is a big point, interesting point also, because you can even say one detail is that the dev environment of the client can also be free of charge. You see, and you can begin to pay in QA, acceptance, and production. And so it's a big advantage where in other cloud you have to pay everything.
Yeah, and it sounds to me, as said, that this is a perfect way of starting because there's no investment to start with on the technology side, and they can benefit from your expertise, from your experience doing it with previous clients. And
Yes.
so hopefully, you know, people won't be shy and will get in touch with you or with us, obviously, if they're interested in knowing more. It's obviously impossible to cover everything in one hour of this very wide range solution, but this was a great overview, I think, of some of the key capabilities. And what I loved, as I said in introduction, is that it's not just about the product, it's also how you used it, how you integrated it with other services. And we could clearly hear your expertise as well in turning this into an actionable insight solution for your clients. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much, Mehdi and Quentin. I don't see any questions in the chat. I don't think, Christiana, we've had any questions live, but as we said, there will be plenty of time for our listeners who are interested in knowing more to connect with us offline. So with that, thank you so much, Quentin and Mehdi. And,
With pleasure.
And
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone listening.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.